Is it like a centre that they go to, or?
No, we're mobile. So like we're in the home.
Oh, so you go out and like see people?
Jace goes. So Jace, like what we have, like so people access either like through ourselves or through the website.
Yeah.
And like they'll be like, hey, like it's either their family member or their partner. Like we need you to like come out and have a chat to them. So normally like Jace will do like an initial conversation or a meet with like either the partner or the family members and just like let them know what's coming up, and then organise a meeting and go see the person.
That's good.
So I think the first thing is that like if you're meeting someone in their comfortable space, like that first initial kind of boundaries already, you've jumped that already.
Yeah.
As long as you come in a space where you kind of like try and make them feel comfortable, like you're already there.
Yeah.
So I think the difference of like someone thinking that they're going to have to like leave their comfort zone and go somewhere and kind of access treatment instead of like being able to do it all from their home. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
And like our success rate so far is like
through the roof.
Yeah, it's working,
Wow.
which is crazy because I don't know, when you allow someone to feel comfortable and then you make yourself vulnerable, in my experience anyway, like when I make myself vulnerable, then those people, like that person, allows themselves to open up a lot quicker as well.
Yeah.
So like having that and then already being in a comfortable space, like we're on a roll. We're already there. Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about all that. We better do formal introductions. So we're rolling anyway, so we might as well just keep going.
Sure.
So yeah, tonight we're with Jake Brooks. So I'll give you a bit of an intro, but Jake's in recovery himself, and we'll hear a little bit about the story. Yeah. Good friend of mine, and I must say, it's a bit embarrassing, don't want to go too far, but yeah, you've actually been someone that's kind of pushed me and inspired me in my recovery, so it's good to have you on and hear your story, and I think you got a really interesting story, because at the moment you're a builder, and I would say quite successful in that space for your age, and doing all the things that you want to do, which is kind of pretty amazing. But then on top of that, started with some other people something pretty interesting in the addiction space. So good to have you on, man.
Thanks, man. Tell us
a bit about yourself. Tell us a bit about your story.
Where do I start? I guess, like I was like a young, uncomfortable, unable to kind of like connect with people kind of person, like I was super sensitive, super easily offended, and geez, I would have been hard to parent. I swear to God, I was always in my own head, and like always needing to be the best, always needing to kind of like push to kind of be ahead of the crowd, and it just caused so much fucking discomfort. The first time I picked up drugs, I was 13. I was smoking at 13, like hanging out with the cool kids at the back of the Oval, and like just really progressed from there. Like I was the creature of someone. I was someone that was bullied in primary school, and then like I went to high school and I was like I'm not going to be that person. Like I'm gonna be liked, and I recreated myself to become like what I believed people wanted me to be. Yeah. And quite quickly, like I rose to that, and I was liked, and people did seem to accept me for who I was. Yeah. But that was just like an ongoing thing. Like, how can I continue to be accepted? How can I continue to be liked? And like that took me into the drug world, really. Yeah,
yeah. So just going back, I thought it was. So when you say hard to parent, like, what do you mean by that?
Like, how do you deal with a kid that's like offended by everything? Like you can't joke with him because his self-esteem's so low. You can't you can't tell him off because he's going to be upset about it. Like he's going to rebel. No, like my experience is that like whether it was like being scolded or being kind of taught a lesson or like either way I'd be offended. Yeah. Like I just couldn't take reason. I couldn't deal with life and what kind of comes from life. Yeah. I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So 13, it's funny, like when you say that, because I've done this stuff before and, you know, been in addiction, whatever, like sometimes you just can't get used to it, and you said it, but then it just registered to me then, like 13 is so young to start taking drugs.
Yeah.
What was the lure to that? Like, talk us through that first time that you used drugs at 13. What was it?
It was my mates. Like, my mates were doing it, like, and it was cool. You know,
Yeah.
I remember like sitting down on like at this basketball court down the road from my mate's place, and like we were kind of like sitting up on like this little set of stairs, like next to the basketball court, and like just like we're passing around the billy, and like there was this thing, right, and they'd like put this like invisible box over your head, and then they'd like mime, and like I was fully baked, like I was totally baked.
Yeah.
And as soon as they did that and they took it off and they're like, "You're right, man," I'm like, I'm in, like I fit.
Yeah.
Like it's good.
Yeah.
You know?
So, and then what was it like from there? Was it all the time? Because this is something, you know, I find interesting talking to people, and I find it's kind of different. Were you straight away all in on drugs from that point? Smoking, was it marijuana the first time you say?
Yeah, marijuana the first time. Oh, and I tell you what, for the rest of my addiction, I hated weed. Like,
wow.
I was not interested in it whatsoever. But and for me, like I binged. Like I didn't like doing it all the time.
Yeah.
But I believe that the tendencies of addiction, not just drug addiction, but addiction in general for me, because like I'm well and truly an addict.
Right.
Like I'm not just a drug addict, I'm an addict. Like I'm like anything that feels good, anything that makes me feel, you know, a little bit different.
Yeah.
Like I do it to excess. Like if I don't learn to manage that stuff, I do anything to excess.
Yeah.
And yeah, I binged. Like I binged hard. Like I didn't like feeling a little bit. Like I wanted to like hit it. And but yeah, I found that it'd be a lot of binging, like right through till I got to sort of like 16, 17.
Yeah.
It was binge using. Weekends,
Yeah.
you know, like I left school when I was 16, started an apprenticeship. I was like the kid in the group that like always had money, so it'd be like a couple of slabs and a couple of pills and a bag, you know, and we'd just go to parties, and like it'd just be get completely shit-faced wasted, and then like my parents like finding me on the back deck like after a solid weekend. You know?
Yeah.
And like that was it. Like that was teen life.
Yeah. Wow. So, and looking back on that now, so how old are you now?
28.
28. So looking back on that now, how do you feel about that was your life as a teen?
I think it was part of my journey. Like it was part of my experience. Like that was me getting to know me. You know, like I don't think I can. And I tell you what, like there was a lot of good times, Jacko. You know, like there really was, and like we had a lot of fun. But like the problem was the fun wore out. The fun wore out pretty quick. Yeah. And then you're trying to recreate something that was no longer there.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting point. When I talk to people or people that haven't been through drug use or talking about their kids or whatever, and they kind of say, for instance, like, with ice or whatever the drug is, like, because it seems mental to do it. And they ask me, like, why would you do it over and over again? And the reality of it is that, like, for a little while when you're taking drugs, definitely the euphoric feeling of it is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And that's why people do it again. So, interesting. So, just going back, sorry, I'm an interrupter, I jump around a bit.
Go.
So, you mentioned that you kind of get addicted to everything, is that right?
Anything.
So, because, so a bit like the Russell Brand sort of theory, or what he describes as how he kind of becomes addicted to like anything and everything.
Follow him. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I totally get where he's coming from, and that's been my experience. Really. Yeah.
So addiction is more for you. What you're saying, to kind of summarize it, it's more than just the actual drug or whatever it is that you're using. It's actually more about what's going on inside you. Or
I heard from a guy like in early recovery, and like a little line that I've always loved is that drugs are my temporary solution to my problem with life.
Yeah.
Like unable to deal with life.
Yeah.
Yeah, unable to manage a standard life, unable to just be, you know, a citizen.
Yeah.
We call it.
Yeah.
You know, like I wasn't able to just kind of conform to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So life, like, so unable to manage it, because I think it's really interesting, and it's definitely something that I think is true about addiction as well. But explain that to people that are watching this now. Like, what do you mean by life? Or is it those feelings that you're talking about before when
emotions
you're a kid?
Emotions and feelings, like, but also like, because a lot of it is like my inability to deal with myself, like low self-esteem, and like not being able to understand myself as an individual, like what I like not understanding what I like, because like for so long telling myself that what I liked was what other people liked. What do I like? You know, like understanding that, but also taking responsibility, like whether it be letting my mum bail me out every time that I have a financial issue, you know, or, you know, like having something happen at work and just kind of like, you know, jumping out of a job because like I don't want to have to deal with it, or, you know, not being able to work through problems with mates and then ditching mates, like not having long-term friendships, or, you know, jumping out of relationships too early because like I don't want to commit myself. Yeah. Like all of that stuff.
And did you know any of this at the time?
Fuck no.
Okay, so this has all been a hindsight realisation from recovery?
This has all been stuff that I've learnt through going through it without medicating myself when I feel something. Yeah. So allowing myself to feel it and being able to be vulnerable enough to explain that and share that with someone else. Yeah. And have them give me their experience on going through something similar.
Interesting. Yeah. All right, we'll go back to this because there's so much in there that we can talk about. But so teens, you kind of described that. Yeah. Where did it go from there in your story with addiction?
Well, like I got into dealing. Like, and I got into that, like, and I've got a record to show for it now. Yeah. You know, which is a bit of a shame, but it's my experience. You know, yeah. So like I got into that, and I was definitely dealing heavily before I was using really heavily. Yeah. Like I was like that kind of lifestyle, that being able to kind of take whatever you wanted and not have to take responsibility, not having to do the 9 to 5, like not having to do that stuff was so appealing. Yeah. You know, and I saw the people in that lifestyle, and also like all of these TV series and all these movies and stuff, I'm like, that's cool. Yeah. Like I want to be like that.
So you would say that played a big part of kind of shaping your identity.
I became addicted to that lifestyle.
Wow. Yeah. 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 So started dealing, if like what were you dealing, you know?
I started on pills, I dealt coke, and then I ended up dealing ice. And like it was literally like we start here and then we just start heading down. Yeah. It just kept on getting consistently worse. The people you were dealing with, the crime you were doing. Yeah. Like all that stuff just kept getting worse. Yeah. And by the time like I was like, you know, kind of in the bitter ends of my using, which was when I was 22. Yeah. Like, you know, I was sleeping on a couch in a house where no one actually knew my last name. Like I hadn't seen my family in a good while. Yeah. Had no contact with any friends really. You know, and it was shit. Yeah. You know? But
and what were the main drugs that took you there when you were like, was there, you know, certain ones that took you to that place quicker than the other ones?
Yeah, well, like, you know, ice was the big factor. And prescriptions like doing like Valium and Xanax and then also like the GHB and that stuff as well. Like that was all kind of like cocktailing and trying to kind of create some sort of normality, chemically based normality on a daily basis, you know? Like there was that kind of knowing that like when I'd actually sleep, when I'd get up, that if I didn't use within the first sort of hour or so, I'd be back in bed. Yeah. You know, like that was the reality of my last sort of year and a half of using. Yeah. It was just like, I need to use now. Yeah. Otherwise, nothing's going to happen today.
Well, so it's pretty amazing because, for people watching this, it would be kind of somewhat troubling, I guess, or like astounding because, you just don't look like the kind of person that would get stuck in a drug house, you know, where no one knows your last name and sleeping on the couch and just fucked, basically.
But it starts somewhere, Jacko. That's the thing, you know. Like we look at the end. We look at the end of it. Yeah. And we think like, how did I get here? But it's not like it happened in one day. You know what I mean? Like it happened over someone's minimal lifetime. Yeah. Like that kind of progression for me. Like, you know, if we kind of hit the nail on it at 16 when it started to get unmanageable through to 22, that's 6 years. Like that's a lot of days. Yeah. Wow. So can you remember a point in time where it kind of escalated from that sort of partying to
sleeping in a drug house? Was it the dealing, or was it something else? Was there a situation, or because I just find it incredibly interesting myself, and so do other people. Just what's that point that kind of tips you over the edge, or is there a point, or is it just a gradual thing that moves on? Because some people, a lot of people have that partying in their life at that age and don't end up in drug houses on crack, so how does that happen? Or how did it happen for you?
Like, I think some of it's environmental. Like, I think some of it's got to do with the people you surround yourself with and what you kind of bring yourself into. And then the other part of it is that young, easily offended, sensitive young kid that can't deal with his own shit, you know? Like, it's a lot of both. So, like, there's a part of me that's like kind of, there's that other part of me that's extremely driven and he's quite cluey and can kind of, figure stuff out and kind of nut his way around things, so there's that, but like take that with like low self-esteem and an inability to kind of like take responsibility, and it makes a whole mess. But it's like, it's that, and then, put myself into a situation where I'm dealing with people with guns and machetes and, breaking into hotels and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, at that point, you should go, I'm going home to mum and dad. And I'm like, and I'm like, I'm booking another hotel and we're going again. And I don't get that. Like, I don't get why you make that decision. It's like when, a friend of mine in recovery again, he'd always tell me about he was on a couple of police chases and normally when a cop car comes behind me, I stop. Yeah. When a cop car goes behind him, he keeps going. Yeah. It doesn't make sense, does it? But it's just, there's something inside me that when I get into that situation, I go into kind of kind of emergency mode. Yeah. And emergency mode kind of goes into flight. Yeah. It doesn't go and hide. Yeah. And that was sort of, in some ways, it kept me alive, and in other ways, it probably put me into a lot more harm than what I wanted. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Okay, so what was the breaking point is, the obvious next question. And, that allowed you to kind of go, oh, this is crazy, I've got to cut this out. It's a funny one, you know. The situation was shit. I was getting beaten up every day because I'd stopped doing, I'd stopped kind of dealing and stopped helping these people out that I was involved with, and I was in a shit spot. But the main thing that kind of got me out of that life was a lack of connection. Yeah. It was a lack of connection with myself and a lack of connection with others. Yeah. And there was and I think it was had a lot to do with the amount of drugs I was taking, but I went into this kind of state of sleep paralysis for it was about the last 3 or 4 weeks of my using. I've heard about this a lot with ice users. Yeah. So talk us through that. And so what happened was I'd wake up in the morning. Yeah. And I'd be able to see and breathe, but I couldn't move. That would be scary. Yeah, but I wasn't scared. Right. And that's the thing, my level of self-worth and how I felt about myself had no longer, for some reason, was bothered with that. Yeah. I'd kind of put myself into these states that many times that I'd kind of got to a point where I didn't fucking care. Yeah. But what it gave me every day, well, pretty much every day for that last little bit, it gave me some time to be stuck with my thoughts and the reality of my situation. Because as soon as I use, or as soon as I get up, the busyness of the day and the busyness of that lifestyle got in the way. Yeah. And I feel there was some sort of intervention there. There was something that kind of I don't know what it is, but there's something that stopped me in my tracks and said hey, look at yourself. Yeah. There's no one around you that loves you, man. Yeah. There's nothing going on for you here. Yeah. What are you going to do? Yeah. And I'd get up and I'd use. And then the next day it'd happen again and I'd get up and I'd use. Yeah. And at that time, I'd just come out of, I'd just been locked up. They'd done me for the 4th time stealing cars. There was a whole bunch of stuff going on. I was reporting to the cop shop. It sounds like a bad movie. Oh, it was horrible. Yeah. It was shit. And I was living off, I didn't even have a DSP. I just had a standard, New Start allowance, and I'm trying to live off that. Yeah. And trying to use every day, and the crime that's involved in. Anyway, it was just an absolute fucking mess. I was 59 kilos. I'm 6'1". Wow. 59 kilos is pretty fucking small. Yeah. I was grey. you know, I barely fed myself. Like, you know, you kind of have either you'd clean up after yourself, you'd feed yourself, or you'd clean yourself for the day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You'd get one of them. You normally wouldn't get all three.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, what happened for me was like, at some point there, like that realization clicked. And then I was kind of like, I was also benefited by the fact that like my sister like never kind of gave up on me, you know, and she came around at the right time.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, reconnected at the right time, and I was given an opportunity.
So, wow. So, did you the first like the thing that we are kind of finding out from talking to other people that have been through addiction as well, and you know, I definitely think this happened to me when I got clean too, is that there's those moments that you're describing where there's that incredible sadness and pain and all that stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
And then, as you kind of described, you get up in the morning and you don't have drugs in your system anymore, and all that goes out the door, and you just want to kind of get on again. And then it's almost like you get on, and then you sort of realize again what's going on in your life, and then you want to get clean again. Did that happen for you? Like, did you essentially, in a way, like, it sounds like you wanted everything to stop in your life and you wanted to get clean, but did you, like, was it more your sister and family kind of pushing you in the right direction?
Like they, you know, we went through probably like the last sort of, probably the last 3 years of my using, like mum and dad, like they knew like what I was up. Like I got my first, you know, commercial quantities charged. Like I got charged as a dealer, like when I was 18.
Yeah.
You know, like my family knew what was going on. Like it was, you know, there's a lot of shame around it. There's a lot of fucking, I felt really bad about it. But like whenever it get really hectic again, like I'd push them away and I'd disappear. Like I'd just gone and just be gone. And yes, they did, like, but like they kind of knew that like my resistance, like it wasn't going to work unless I wanted to. So I was really kind of left, and like, you know, like I had to not plead, but I had to ask, and I had to be, you know, pretty pretty onto it for them to like let me back in. This last time, and like this last time that I actually got clean. You know, but no, it was me, man. Like I wanted a change. I wanted something different.
And do you think that that's one of the essential parts for people to get clean from what you've seen? And we'll talk about this a bit more with what you're doing now, but because it's another one of those points that everybody asks about, that we just like to kind of touch on. And everybody sort of has a different kind of view of it or a different experience, but is it something that you think that you need to have the desire to kind of be clean, or do you think that you can be kind of pulled out of it?
Plays a part, definitely plays a part, but like I wanted to get clean quite a few times. Like, you know, like there was so many times, and like, and you know as well, like how many people are like, fuck, like I just want to get clean, man, like I just want to get clean. But like shit gets in the way of that, you know, like we get in the way of that. That's the main thing that gets in the way of it, is ourselves. And the thing that changed this time, and I'll probably talk about this guy a little bit later as well, is that like when I ended up getting into like an outpatient program. So my parents got me into that. Like we couldn't afford to go to like a big rehab. But like they got me into this outpatient program, and I met this guy on the first day, and like, you know, he was, I think at that time he was like 7 years clean or something. And he told me his story, and like I was fucking blown away. I was blown away. I was like, how the fuck are you clean? Like I thought I was hectic. Like, look at you. You know? And yeah, so like he explained his story, and what I got straight away was like a little bit of hope. And then I also started to realize that like I didn't have to just be like fucking bland. Like I thought that like being clean and like being in recovery meant that you just had to be fucking, well actually at that point I didn't know about recovery, but like being off drugs and like not doing anything meant you're going to live a fucking bland life. Your life was just going to be like mellow. And I'm like, awesome. You know, but like he showed me that like it didn't have to be that way.
So having someone kind of there in that initial process where you were kind of looking at different options to get clean or turn your life around or whatever, having someone that had actually had lived experience or been through similar things to you it sounds like it was the most critical part of you getting clean and turning things around.
Yeah, firstly, like, I didn't trust anyone. Like, I kind of, I'd lived in a life where, like, you know, no one...
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
No one, like, what they said they were wasn't the truth. Like, you know, what they showed you they were wasn't the truth. Like, none of it was the truth.
Yeah.
And straight away, like, I kind of, like, I trusted this bloke.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, within sort of the first couple of days, like, I kind of trusted him. And he'd pick up on my little twerks. Like, so, like, I couldn't sit in a room without being able to see the door. Like, I was, like, you know, I was kind of like a scared little animal. Like, I couldn't kind of, I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. Like, I slept with a knife under my pillow for the first month of being clean. Like, I was just paranoid. Like, I thought everyone was still out to get me. I don't know if that was psychosis. I haven't read into that too much. Like, I've just kind of left that be.
Yeah.
But, like, my experience was I was still, like, this frightened young bloke.
Well, man, it sounds like in your story that, you were, like, traumatized, basically.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, and it's probably pretty natural that you were like that, but interesting,
But yeah, so I trusted this dude. Like, it just seemed like he was, you know, he was trustworthy, and that, like, what he was saying was for real, and what he was saying fucking made sense. Like, it made sense on a level inside me, and also based on my experience as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, I think it was really important for me to have someone that has lived it themselves to be able to kind of pass on some sort of knowledge to me.
Yeah. And that's definitely true. Again, in my experience from seeing other people, and I'm the same, most people that I know that have kind of turned it around have had that initially as well. They've had other people in their life that have been through addiction that have kind of helped them to get, as well as, you know, obviously the professional help and support and all that stuff. That
all plays its part.
Yeah. But that lived experience and people being able to articulate, that's what I think it is, articulate emotionally how you're thinking and feeling, and to kind of let you know that you're not some crazy subhuman. Because would you say that? Did you feel like you were completely different in a way from everyone else, and that no one sort of would really understand how you were feeling?
I believe my interpretation was that I was different.
Yeah.
Whether or not other people were feeling it and dealing with it in their own way.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I personally believe that whether you're an addict or not, like, everyone has to deal with life.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the fact that, like, for some reason, I'm extremely sensitive to that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I don't try to anymore even put myself, you know, so, like, you know, I work in the construction industry, and I deal with, like, a lot of people with, like, you know, big egos and heightened emotion, and they're very prideful, like, they love what they do. Like, they're all craftsmen, and they love what they do, and, you know, like, there's emotion there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, like, try and tell, like, a 40-year-old bloke that, like, he needs to do something with his job, like, he needs to improve what he's done, you know, like, he's not going to like it.
Yeah.
You know, and he's going to probably be offended. He's probably going to be a bit upset by that. You know, and so it doesn't matter whether it's them or whether it's, like, a young guy that I'm, like, mentoring and supporting. It's still an array of emotions that we need to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, tell me, because now, and Jake will be pretty humble about this, but it's true. He's been quite successful in the time that he's been clean and turning his life around, you know, not only in like a work sort of sense and career path, but also just, you know, within his I've had the opportunity to see him do his thing, and so done really well with relationships and rebuilding your life. How does someone go from what you're describing in your addiction to where you are now? You know, essentially kind of running and managing the company, setting up your own stuff with the interest, you know, like, and just being kind of okay. Would you say that you're okay now a lot of the time, and you sort of feel pretty good most of the time? Like, your life seems completely different to what it was.
And I would say that, like, you know, everyone is kind of dealing with stuff on a daily basis, but yes, like, I am comfortable with myself. You know? Like, today I can say, like, yes, like, I'm comfortable with the person I am. I don't need to look any different. I don't need to feel any different. Like, I can accept where I am.
So how did you get there, or what was like, give us an insight into what was the key kind of things that helped you early on when you first got clean and you went to that outpatient program that helped you to kind of propel to that position that you're in now, or this position that you're in now?
It's coming to mind, and I don't know if it's like it, but if it's coming to mind, I'll just spit it out. Like, it's, you know, acknowledging fear. Yeah. Like, it's one thing to, like, to see fear. Yeah. But it's another thing to acknowledge it for what it is, accept it, and be able to kind of push through it.
So for the person sitting at home, family member, person that, you know, might be using drugs that wants to stop, give us like the top 3 practical things that you would say that helped you to like turn it around in the early days.
Fellowship.
Early day of recovery, I'm talking.
Yeah, fellowship like is like key. It's like number one. Like what, depending on what you're addicted to, like there's support out there.
Yeah.
Can I say actually?
You can say. You can.
Yeah. I don't know if I can say that or not.
Cool.
Yeah. So fellowship.
Yeah.
Fellowship is definitely like key. It's like number one. Like I learned how to rebuild, like pretty much reboot myself.
Yeah.
In recovery.
Yeah.
So like that, first and foremost, that needs to become like number one priority. Second thing is like learn to find a new way of having fun.
Yeah.
You need to find fun. Like
That's a good one, man.
You need to find something that makes a new life worth living for.
Yeah.
And like I had this like, so like a really good mate of mine, like that was kind of our thing in early recovery, was like, you know, I didn't work for sort of the first like 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
And then kind of gradually work my way back in. But we'd go and do like just fun activities, and we'd go to day meetings, and then we'd like go off and do like mini golf or go rock climbing, and like I taught him how to snowboard, and you know we went off and just did some like really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And you know like trained, like did some gym and got fit, and like put a whole bunch of weight back on, you know.
Yeah.
And
so when Jake says day meetings, and he's talking about like there's heaps of support groups out there, which I'll put links to in the videos and stuff. So yeah. So yeah.
And then the third one would probably be like you know, like friendships.
Yeah.
So like build connections.
Yeah.
Build connections with people and try to carry them through.
Yeah.
Because like I found that like when I was able to build a relationship with someone and be vulnerable, then they allowed themselves to do the same, and then I started to create this kind of like this hub, this like support hub of my own.
Yeah.
You know, and now like I can count sort of on maybe like 2 hands.
Yeah.
Like the people that I can go to anytime I need to, they know exactly what I'm like. They can look at my face and know exactly what's going on for me, whether I'm like acting on fear, whether I'm like kind of dropping into like some sort of behavior, whether I'm fixated on a girl or on money or on a new pair of sneakers. Like they know.
Yeah.
You know, because like I've been able to tell them everything. And it sounds weird, doesn't it, really? Because like I think about like the way that we grew up, and it's like you just don't have those deep conversations. And like we don't have them all the time. Like we can kind of just have normal conversations and have fun. But like when I need to, like I can have that conversation with my mates.
And I think it's an interesting point that you brought up before, and that you're kind of touching on there, is that what you're sort of saying is that a lot of your recovery has actually been about building your internal kind of strengths back up, and you know, dealing with your emotions and your thoughts, and learning how to manage all that. And then as a result of doing that, the externals in your life have gotten better. Well, that's what I'm sort of hearing you saying. Yeah. So depending on what, like a good which doesn't make sense when you get clean, by the way. You're just like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, sure, whatever. Like, I'll work on that later. I'm just gonna go get myself a fancy car and a girl.
That's right. Yeah. That's true.
But a good indication for me is like the front seat of my, so like my front seat of my car is like my office, like a lot of the time. So like the front seat of my car and my bedroom. So like I'm actually quite a neat dude, like most of the time. But like if I'm kind of running a bit, we call it running a bit rough, or if I'm being a little bit unmanageable, or if shit's just not kind of meshing for me at the time, it's messy.
Yeah.
If everything's going the way that it should go, and that's not based on how I feel, but just in general, I'm accepting of where I'm at, I'm accepting of myself.
Yeah.
It's clean.
Yeah. Interesting. I like it. So tell me now, because I think it's an interesting shift, sort of moving out of that personal stuff, and doing quite well in the building game and industry, and all that stuff. Tell us a bit about what you and some other people have just set up recently, what it's called, and what you do. Yeah,
so it's Addiction Solutions Victoria.
Yeah.
And so me and another like a friend of mine who was actually the guy that I was talking to you about.
There you go.
From the outpatient program. He was managing the outpatient program at the time, Jace, and so me and him a couple of years ago, like, I don't know, we were just kind of just talking, and like we both had kind of some ideas of what we wanted to do, and like I had this idea of like kind of creating this this like kind of setup that would like help people pay for treatment into private rehabs.
Right.
And like that came about just from like seeing the amount of people that were coming into fellowship or support groups that that were unable to actually get like that kind of that initial support they needed. And so Jace like has worked, like he's been in the industry for like I think 10 years now, and so like he's kind of seen both sides of it. He's worked in public, he's worked in private, and so like he kind of had his own idea as well, and so I was like let's, you know, in long and short, I'm like, let's set something up. Let's do it. You know, like we're both kind of into it. Like we kind of really trusted each other, and he was like, he goes, I want to do a not for profit.
Yep.
Like
interesting.
I want to do something a bit different. Like I want to get people talking, and I'm like, what's involved in that?
Yeah.
And he goes, like, it's not going to be like a private, but we want to kind of run it that way.
Yeah.
You know, we want to be able to kind of provide what private rehabs do.
Yeah.
We want to do it at a price that's affordable to anyone.
Yeah.
You know?
And was a big driving part of that, because you mentioned before when you were trying to get clean that your family didn't have the money to go and do...
No, it wasn't feasible. Like, it wasn't feasible for me to go and spend upwards amount 30,000 on a rehab to put me in. Like my recovery was spent in fellowship or in support groups, and with a person like Jace, you know, doing some like one-on-one counselling.
Okay, so, and it's an interesting thing, and it might be to the surprise of some people, but there's not a lot of in Victoria anyway, and you know, from what I know across Australia, there's not a lot of non-for-profit addiction treatment solution stuff available for people to get some help that, you know, makes things a little bit more affordable. There's a lot of public system and there's a lot of private system, and they run off different models of care, and one in the private system is quite expensive to go to, and in the public system it's pretty well documented that it's hard to get a bed sometimes, and you gotta wait. And from what you were describing before in your addiction, that's the problem that happens with people when they go to the public system programs, is that because they have to wait and they're ready right then and there, they head the other way, and then they might not even get that opportunity to get clean because they miss their window. So it's an interesting thing. So non-for-profit solution is quite a good one, I think. So tell us a little bit about like what you do there and what the model is and all that kind of stuff. Or you were going to say something? Yeah,
no, I was just going to say quickly as well, like you touched on like way early back in the piece, you were talking about like, you know, being willing to get clean. Like, is that like the most important thing? And like, so my experience shows me that like we can be fed information at any point. Like, so we can kind of experience something new at any point and be led by example. And whether or not like we're ready to get clean, like that information, we then know it's available.
That's right.
You know, and that was like a big thing. Like, it's been a big thing for me. Like, I've had like some young guys that I've worked with, like supported, and like they've gone back out and used, and then like they've come back. You know, like when they've kind of gone and done that little bit more research, or like gone to get a little bit more evidence to the fact that they are and they will continue to be an addict, they come back and they want to be supported.
Interesting. Because that's the other thing that we've got to touch on as well, is that not everyone, like probably the larger majority of people don't actually stay clean or do the things that they want to do in their life from that first initial time that they present to treatment or want to get help and whatever. It's usually a long sort of process over time. So it's a good point that you make. Tell us a little bit about the differences, or like what the model is for what you guys do. And this isn't plug, by the way. It's It's actually just an interesting thing because there's been a lot of talk about the rehab industry and some interesting programs that have happened.
Definitely.
And it's definitely a big talking point here in Australia at the moment. So yeah, tell us a little bit about the differences and the model that you guys are running now.
Well, I can tell you about like what we're doing now, and then like the direction of what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So like our main objective is to be able to provide addiction solutions or addiction treatment options to anyone.
Yeah.
So we want to be able to kind of give anyone like the option of being able to be supported and given some information based on what it takes to get clean.
Yeah.
So at the moment, what we're focusing on is doing in-home counselling and support.
So that's interesting. I haven't heard too much of that kind of stuff. I know they do a lot of that actually with mental health based stuff. But yeah, like I haven't heard much of that with addiction. I'm sure there probably is something, but yeah. And how's that going? Is it?
It's unreal.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, you know, like I've got to meet, so I don't actually, like I'm not a counsellor.
Yeah.
I'm not a counsellor and I'm not qualified to do it.
Yeah.
Like my involvement, so I'll just touch on that quickly. My involvement in ASV is the fact, Addiction Solutions Victoria, is that like I've always wanted to be able to support anyone that wants to get clean because of how much it changed my life.
Yeah.
But
awesome.
But I'm not
qualified.
Not qualified for it. Eventually, I probably will be. Eventually, I probably will get in there.
Yeah.
But at this point, I'm not. Jace does the treatments.
Yeah.
And so he gets into the homes. Like he's able to get into the home and talk to them one-on-one, which is unreal.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were kind of touching on something like when we first started.
Yeah,
like, what is it about that because you mentioned that it's working quite well at the moment, and for the time that you guys have been open anyway. What do you think it is that allows that to be successful?
Well, what we're finding is that like being able to kind of meet these people in their own environment. So like I kind of talk about like addiction is in like environmental, like what we kind of surround ourselves with.
Yeah.
If we're going into someone else's environment and like they're already comfortable in that space, like that's the first hurdle.
Yeah.
Like the first hurdle is like getting that person into their own comfortable space. And then the next part is then like meeting them at that space.
Yeah.
You know, then by being able to be vulnerable with them, so like just like what I do when I mentor people, same as what Jace does when he's doing counselling, he'll share a bit of himself. Like he'll talk about himself and he'll explain to them like who he is and where he's come from.
Yeah.
You know?
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. So what's the direction forward with it? Obviously to keep going with that because it sounds like it's working, but you know, there's obviously more in store.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's like, you know, the direction is the fact that like we want to be able to provide every service that everyone else does as well.
Yeah.
And like I guess what people need to understand as well, we're not bankrolled. Like we've built this from the ground up on minimal funds for the main reason that like the directive of the business is always based on what we're providing and not how much. You know, not how much it costs to provide it and not how much it brings home. You know, and I understand that like a lot of big rehabs, they start with these big amounts of money that's owed to like set up these facilities and to set up all these programs to employ all these people. We've kind of gone the other way and we've gone, let's start small.
Yeah.
And we're going to work our way to that point.
Yeah.
So, you know, going from doing in-home treatments to then running day programs to then be able to have like support accommodation, you know, getting involved with like setting up, you know, like kind of, you know, I want to be able to kind of put people into work and do training and all of that stuff.
Awesome.
You know, because like, you know, it's that kind of, there's that journey, especially in that first 12 months where these people like they're able to reinvent themselves, they're able to grow, and like I really want to be able to support someone all the way through that. Yeah. You know, let them have like that kind of that dream life that I've been able to kind of, you know, start to grow for myself. Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting. I think that's a good point to probably wrap it up on because it's a bit of the theme of like what it's been about is that, this is not just a short-term fix, it's a journey. And that's what you guys kind of want to do with what you're doing now. And kudos to you, man, for setting up the Addiction Solutions Victoria and
thanks, man.
Having a crack at that. But so thanks for coming on, man, and sharing your story. Last thing I always like to do is like in parting, is there anything kind of on your mind about the overall space, or if you had like a not like a message, but like if you had something that you wanted to kind of leave with people imparting, what would it be?
Oh, he's put me on the spot.
I like it.
Oh.
This is what we do.
I think that with the state that we've got at the moment and the amount of people that are struggling with addiction, whether it be drugs, gambling, whatever it is, like any support is good. You know, like I always say, like any bed's a bed, any treatment, you know, as long as like we're all kind of like pushing towards the same goal, and that's to like be able to support and help people through that process. Like we just need more people doing it because there's that just such a lack of it. And I guess from my end as well, like give it a go, because like I thought that I was fucking done for. And like, you know, in 5.5 years, like my life is like, you know, I can't even bound to think like that I'd become that person compared to like how I feel today.
Awesome, man.
Thanks, man.
Well, thanks again for coming on, and cheers.
Cheers, Jack. Thanks.